And we are recording. This is HJM Boxing, your host Harley. And on today's video, we're doing a post-fight review of what happened last night in Gibraltar, where Alexander Povetkin fought Dillian Whyte in the rematch. And we saw Dillian Whyte become victorious and got redemption in his first fight and knock out Alexander Povetkin in the fourth round. We're going to be reviewing the whole card and giving my reaction to every single fight. First of all, there's nowhere else to start than Dillian Whyte coming back from the first fight and knocking out Alexander Povetkin in his own right in the fourth round, where he dominated from round one. My thoughts on the fight were Dillian Whyte, of course, did everything he was meant to do in the fight. He started well, he started aggressive. He was very patient with his work this time, more calculated, took his shots well. The jab worked brilliantly. And the left hook, obviously, in the fourth came off. But my thoughts are Alex Povetkin didn't look the same fighter for me. He looked every bit as 41 as he was in that fight. He looked an old man for me. He didn't look right. His demeanor, the whole fight didn't look right coming into the ring. His legs weren't there for me. He looked very flat-footed. He looked very wobbly. His balance was off. There was something wrong with Alexander Povetkin there. And I think it's a combination of a lot of things for me. I think obviously the COVID he had, I think it was in December time. I'm not sure he had COVID, didn't he? And he was hospitalized. He had COVID very badly. He was in hospital. And I don't think he's recovered. He obviously clearly hasn't recovered. And his old age and everything, he just looked a shot fighter there. And at 41 years old, you have to think that's the end for Alexander Povetkin now. I wouldn't like to see him go in more fights. And he'd just take beatings for me. His punch resistance went there. He looked to me like he still had everything in his mind. He still had all his faculties in his head, but his body just wasn't doing it for him. Obviously, he's a clever boxer, Alexander Povetkin. You don't win Olympic gold medals. You don't win world titles if you're not a brilliant fighter. And before the fight last night, he'd only lost to Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko. So that's the best of the best at heavyweight in the heavyweights this era. So Alex Povetkin has had a brilliant career, and he's done everything as a fighter, really. You can say, really, he's beat a lot of top contenders. He's been a world champion, done it in the amateur games, winning an Olympic gold medal in 2008. So he's done a lot, Alexander Povetkin, really. So, yeah, you can't fault his career as a whole. But last night, that wasn't an Alex Povetkin we've seen from years before. That was an Alex Povetkin who had zero punch resistance. A little bit like the first fight, in a sense, he looked a similar way where when Dillian Whyte landed clean, it was wobbly legs. But Alex Povetkin's always had that kind of wobbly legs, not great balance when he's hurt. You've seen it against David Price, even in a fight where David Price rocked him and his legs went. So he has that in him. He's got a great heart, Alexander Povetkin. He's always shown heart in his career. Obviously, his career is slightly tainted with the drug allegations, of course, but yeah, he's had a good career as a whole. Obviously, the drugs for me is a little bit of a downer for me, and you can't ignore that, being on enhancing drugs in certain fights. He's probably, and it makes you debate whether he's been on those drugs for a lot of his career. But no, as a whole, like I say, his career was solid. Olympic gold medal, world champion. So yeah, for Dillian Whyte, it's a good redemption win for him. Fourth round knockout, done his job. For me, his jab was good. The hook worked. He did everything right, really. I think the fight was good for him. I think, obviously, the rematch was perfect for him in hindsight, because Alex Povetkin just didn't look right, did he? He just looked every bit his age. And Dillian Whyte done his job, did what he had to do. So fair play to Dillian Whyte. Dominated the jab from first round, rocked him a couple of times. I think he could have got him out in the first round, to be fair. The first round, he really put it on Alexander Povetkin. Povetkin looked like he was actually ready to go in that first round, and he never got his legs. He never got his legs in the whole fight. Alexander Povetkin never looked comfortable at all in the fight, and you've got to give Dillian Whyte a lot of credit for that. For me, you've got to give him a lot of credit, because he made it uncomfortable for Alexander Povetkin. He didn't let Povetkin settle. You know, in the first fight, what he did with Alexander Povetkin, he had him hurt, but he let Alex Povetkin settle and regain himself a little bit, get his faculties back. He never pushed the gas in the fight, and never pushed for the knockout in the first fight. He played it a bit too safe. He didn't play it safe in this rematch, so he went for it from round one, really. Tried to get him out of there straight away, and when the opportunity came, the jab, right, 1-2, rocked Povetkin. Povetkin was dazed. He's probably out on his feet there, but Dillian Whyte left nothing there, left no doubt there with the left hook in the end, and knocked Povetkin down, and that was game over. in the 4th round, and he knocked Alexander Povetkin out clean. So he's made it 1-1. I do not see a third fight happening, to be fair. I think Alexander Povetkin, like I've said earlier, should call it a day. His time is done, I think, 41 years old. When your punch resistance is gone at 41 and you're taking punishment like that, you should call it a day in boxing, because this sport takes no prisoners. It's serious, and you need to be able to take a punch. If you can't take a punch at this heavyweight, especially in the heavyweight division, you're in serious trouble. So Alexander Povetkin, for me, it's time to call it a day. He's made a lot of money in this game. He's made millions. You look at when he fought Vladimir Klitschko in Russia. That was a massive fight back in the day. I think that was 2011, 2012, somewhere between there, roughly, think off the top of my head. He made massive money against Vladimir Klitschko. He would have made massive money to fight Anthony Joshua at the Millennium Stadium. He was a mandatory defense. Povetkin gave Joshua a few troubles in the early rounds in that fight, from memory. First, second round, he had AJ rocked a little bit. So this guy is brilliant. In his prime, he was a top fighter. Again, the drugs, I have to mention the drugs. That does hinder a lot of his career, but overall, a lot of people will rate his career as a top career, because he's knocked a lot of good guys out. He's knocked out Carlos Takam. He's knocked out some good fighters, some decent top named in the heavyweight division. He has a very stacked resume. He's fought a lot of the guys, top guys at cruiser. He fought at cruiserweight, obviously Hook and people like that. So he's fought a lot of the top guys in all the divisions, cruiserweight, heavyweight, and he's been a world champion. So he's done everything really. But his time's done for me. Dillian Whyte next. There's a lot he can do. There's a few fights which I'd like to see him in. Obviously, he's looking in really. The Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight is done from all accords, so he's not going to be fighting for a world title anytime soon, Dillian Whyte. So what really is there else for him? There's a potential Andy Ruiz Jr. fight. I quite like that fight on paper. I think Andy Ruiz is a top heavyweight. I think he's obviously knocked out Anthony Joshua. He's fought Joseph Parker. He's a top guy out there. He's training now with Eddie Reynoso, Canelo's trainer, and Eddie Reynoso is a brilliant trainer. So you'd think he's going to get Andy Ruiz in brilliant shape. Andy Ruiz, there's always been a question with his discipline, but if he's on fire, Andy Ruiz, that's a very tough fight for me, for Dillian Whyte, because Andy Ruiz is a quick fighter. He's got quicker hands than Dillian Whyte. He's very quick. He's, like I say, he's quick. He's got a brilliant chin, Andy Ruiz. You see the Anthony Joshua fights, he took everything clean and didn't get rocked at all in either fight. Andy Ruiz is a tough man. I think he's very difficult to stop. And I think that's a difficult style for Dillian Whyte, to be honest, a quick guy that will keep coming forwards. And Dillian Whyte, and I don't think he's got as good as gas tanks. I think that's a tough fight for Dillian Whyte potentially, but it's a big fight out there for him. There's Deontay Wilder, another fight, in my opinion, that's a very, very difficult fight for Dillian Whyte. Deontay Wilder, a lot of people are writing Deontay Wilder off now because of the Tyson Fury fight. But listen, Deontay Wilder's only lost to, in my opinion, the best heavyweight in the world. You look at every other fight, he's knocked out the opponent he's fought. So Deontay Wilder, a lot of people are writing Deontay Wilder off, but he's still a player in this heavyweight division. Don't get me wrong, Deontay Wilder's still a heavy hitter. It's still the biggest hitter in the heavyweight division for me. And he's a problem for every single person in the division, barring maybe Tyson Fury. And even still, I think he's a tough night for Tyson Fury. It only takes one shot in heavyweight boxing. You look at the fights last night. You look at some of the knockouts from last night. It only takes one shot. So don't write any man off in this heavyweight division. And Deontay Wilder, Dillian Whyte is a brilliant fight for me. Maybe make that a WBC mandatory fight. That's a great fight for both guys for me. I'd like to see it. I rate Deontay Wilder still. I'd make him a favourite against Dillian Whyte again, but it's a great fight. A lot of people, I reckon, in the UK would be picking Dillian Whyte, to be fair. So it'd be a good fight to see. I think that's a 50-50, and I think Eddie Hearn's right in saying that's a stadium fight. That's a brilliant fight. Deontay Wilder, Dillian Whyte. I'd love to see it. A lot of politics behind it, though, which makes me worry. I still think it's an unlikely fight. I think Deontay Wilder, I think PBC, Al Heyman, they might look at Deontay Wilder versus Andy Ruiz. That's my inkling with the situation potentially. I think that's the kind of route they're building to. But I'd like to see Dillian Whyte v some of these guys. I'd like to see, because he can't wait now. He's going to be waiting a year or two if he wants a world title fight against either Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury for me. So there's two options there. He could fight. He could also fight Luis Ortiz, a fight he's called a couple of times, which I like as well. I always rated Luis Ortiz, the Cuban, very hard fighter, very skillful fighter, Cuban style, bogeyman. They're both considered guys that nobody wants to fight. So why not fight each other? I know Luis Ortiz is another one coming to the end of his career. But listen, Luis Ortiz, right? He's a problem still. I think a lot of people another guy, a lot of people are writing off, but Luis Ortiz, he's fought at a high level. Obviously, he's beaten everyone really in front of him. He gave Deontay Wilder a lot of problems, and he had him hurt in the first fight from obviously watching the fight from memory as well. Had him rocked. Deontay Wilder was in all sorts of problems in that fight. Obviously, came back and knocked him out. And then the second fight, Luis Ortiz was winning all the fight until Deontay Wilder chinned him. He won every single round in my eyes. So Luis Ortiz, skillful guy, maybe past another one like Povetkin. He's about 39, 40. We all think he's older, Cuban passports and whatnot. So listen, I think Luis Ortiz would be a great fight for Dillian Whyte. I think that's a tricky style for Dillian Whyte. Another one, I'll probably make Ortiz a favourite against Dillian Whyte. But Dillian Whyte is a guy you can't write off in any fight. He's a heavy hitter, Dillian Whyte. And obviously he's the fresher man against Luis Ortiz. That's a 50-50 in my eyes. So that's another great fight I'd like to see. I'd like to see Dillian Whyte in a big fight now and roll the dice again. He's got to roll the dice. He's got to keep rolling the dice. He had his chance maybe of a mandatory with Fury. Obviously that went with losing to Povetkin. He's redeemed himself with Povetkin. Well done. But he can't stall his career now. He's got to take a big fight now for me. I don't want to see a Parker rematch. I don't want to see a Trizora rematch. I don't want to see any of these fights. I want to see him test himself with the best other names out there. Maybe an Alexander Usyk. I know he's probably got things tied up with Joe Joyce. These kind of names are good fights for Dillian Whyte. We've got to keep this heavyweight division rolling, people. We've got to keep it moving. We've got to see big fights after big fights. We've got to see the best fight the best now. So let's see these big fights happen. So, yeah, 3 names I've just put off the top of my head I'd like to see Dillian Whyte fighting. And, yeah, let's keep going. Good win for you, Dillian Whyte. Congratulations, mate. You've regained yourself back in heavyweight division. You're a player again. You're back in the top 5 for me now in heavyweights. There's some big fights out there for you. So let's see them get made. So it's difficult to see where you go now in terms of the world title for me. I think that ship may have sailed a little bit with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury looking like they've signed a deal. I think everyone's really, in the heavyweight division, it seems everyone's waiting for that announcement, to be honest. We want that fight to get announced, and we'll see movement with other fights, Joyce, Usyk potentially, and yeah, we'll see what Dillian Whyte's next move is. It's an exciting next move because there's a lot of names potentially out there, but there's no clear real fight out there for Dillian Whyte at the moment. A lot of politics with sort of contender names he could fight. So let's see what happens. There's a couple of names I've mentioned. Obviously, I've mentioned Andy Ruiz. He's got Chris Arreola. I expect him to take care of business against Arreola now. I think Areola's a bit past it, to be honest. So yeah, I expect Andy Ruiz to take business there, and he's a tough name. And like I say, Wilder, Ortiz, these are the kind of names I want to see you in, Dylan. So let's see them made. Good win, and yeah, move on from there. Now we're going to break down the rest of the card and go from there. We're going to start off with another heavy hitter. Good win, I thought, from Fabio Wardley. Showed a little bit of vulnerability in there. Eric Molina had him hurt. It was a bit of a weird ending, but a very good ending, calculated ending. In the 5th round, obviously, Eric Molina had Fabio rocked, to be fair, in the fight. I thought the rounds were first early round, we'll start with the early rounds. They were very cagey, very quiet, not too much to report, really. I think Fabio was trying to take his time in there. Eric Molina did a lot better than I thought Eric Molina. I'll give him credit in a sense. Yeah, a little bit worrying for Fabio. He got caught a couple of times against Eric Molina. Another guy, he was hurt in the fight. He was generally hurt in the fight in the 5th round. It was a good shot that Eric Molina landed on Fabio. Very good shot. I was a bit worried for Fabio. If that was someone else in there with him, a proper finisher, a killer in his heavyweight division, he'd be in a lot of trouble there. But Eric Molina came up, and I think Eric Molina was too excited really in there, tried to push the finish there, and Fabio really got him out of there in that 5th round. Good left, right, and dropped Molina. A lot of people reckon Eric Molina took a way out. I'm not too sure. Why would he take a way out in the fight when he's just hurt a guy? I don't understand that logic. I saw a lot of people saying Eric Molina wanted out from the 2nd round. I'm not too sure about it. I thought Eric Molina was well in the fight. It was competitive for how long it lasted. And I think Fabio's obviously got a lot of work to work on. People need to remember with Fabio Wardley, he only had 1 or 2 amateur fights. He's got a white collar background, and he's learning on the job. He's a young guy in the heavyweight division. He's got a lot of potential. He's got everything going for him. He's building correctly. That was a great learning fight for Fabio Wardley in his 11th fight. That's his 11th fight fighting a guy, Eric Molina, who gave Deontay Wilder trouble when he fought him in his first title defense, a WBC title defense in Alabama. Deontay Wilder fought Eric Molina first defense. Eric Molina caused caused Deontay Wilder trouble from memory, and that's in 7 rounds. You know, gave him a lot of times, and he rocked Wilder similar to he did Wardley in that fight. He did that to Wilder, so people need to take that in mind. For me, obviously he's fought Joshua. He's got big fight experience. Eric Molina, Hrgovic as well, but Hrgovic got knocked out early, knocked Molina out early. But Hrgovic is an experienced amateur. He's been to the Olympic Games. You know, he's fought at the highest level in the amateurs, and he's a guy who everyone believes is destined to be a heavyweight champion of the world and destined to be a big player in heavyweight division. Fabio Wardley's still learning on the job, so it's very harsh to compare him to the likes of Filip Hrgovic, all the other performances against him. Filip Hrgovic, you know, your Areolas at the time obviously knocked him out. Comparing him to the other defeats he's had, very harsh to compare him because these guys are top fighters at the time. Eric Molina's only lost to top fighters, so yeah, Fabio, good win for him, great name on his resume. And let's see him build from there. Let's see him get good fights after that. I'd like to see him try and go the British title route. I know Nick Webb got a very good win, which I'll go on to in a bit. But Nick Webb potentially would be a great fight, I think, for Fabio. I think if they could get a British title on the line for that, that'd be brilliant for Fabio. But I'm not sure they'd get a British. But even still, I think Fabio v Nick Webb's a great fight for Fabio. I think it's a fight he's obviously got to be careful in because Nick Webb can bang, like we saw earlier in the fight. He's got heavy hands, Nick Webb. That's a good fight for Fabio Wardley. These sort of ilka names, I'd like to see Fabio win. Keep learning the trade. He's still young. He's still a pup in the game, you know. It's his 11th fight. I thought the fight was maybe a little bit too soon as well, Molina, but he got the job done. He got the win, and he'll learn so much from that fight, Fabio Wardley. It really is a great learning experience. A lot of critics of him. And fair enough, it wasn't a sensational performance. It wasn't like you're looking at a world champion type performance, but he's still learning on the job. Give Fabio time. He's got a great mindset. He's working hard in the gym every day. He's got a great trainer in Rob. They know what they're doing. Obviously, I saw Ricky Hatton was in the corner as well. So I think he was the cut man, was he? I'm not sure what his role exactly was in the corner, but they had Ricky Hatton in the corner helping him out. I don't see that. Probably won't be a long-term thing, but that was good to see Ricky Hatton in the corner. But no, Fabio, give him time. Like I said, I'd like to see him fight Nick Webb potentially next. Try and get a British title. If that's possible, he could win a British title. That is brilliant for Fabio Wardley at this stage. He's around that British domestic scene. Obviously, you got Nathan Gorman who fought last night. You've got fighters like that. David Adelaide, I think, is a little bit behind. You've got Hughie Fury, David Price. These guys may be a little bit too experienced at this moment. But give Fabio 5, 6, keep learning, give him 5, 6 development fights. Let him learn his trade properly. Don't rush him. And I think you've got a potential star there. I think he talks brilliantly. He's got a great way to sell himself. He's got a great mindset. He's got a great look to him. And I think he really can go far in this heavyweight division with the right matchmaking and the right learning fights. He'll keep sparring. He'll keep learning. You know, he's got to keep building. And yeah, there's potentially massive fights and big money fights for Fabio. A big stage for him to be a co-main event. You know, another guy who's not had a load of experience and not used to obviously being at that top bit. So maybe a little bit of the pressure being the co-main event, the fight before his manager, Dylan White, may have got to him a little bit. I'm not too sure. But listen, this is all learning. A lot of these guys on this card are still learning, and he's a pup, Fabio Wardley. So give him time, like I say. And he will get there. Trust me, he will get there. I think he's got a massive future in this heavyweight division. But we need the right development fights. We need the right matchmaking. This is important. Eddie Hearn, Dylan White, obviously his manager, and the matchmakers to get this right now. Don't rush him. Let's get him at a nice steady pace. I know Rob's got his best interest. He's got a good team around him. So yeah, good stuff for Dillian. Well, good stuff for Fabio, of course. Well done, mate. Fabio Wardley, keep going. And yeah, on to bigger and better things. So well done, Fabio Wardley. The next fight we're going to be discussing now is what a fight this was. Ted Cheeseman v. James Metcalf. This was sensational. This was the fight of the card for me. This had everything. This had both fighters getting hurt, both fighters on top. Just a war. There wasn't brilliant boxing in it, but this was a brilliant fight, you know. It wasn't technical stuff. This was guts. This was hunger. This was heart. This was heart of a lion. This was war. This was a war. And these type of fights age you in boxing. You don't want to have too many of these fights. And Ted Cheeseman, whether you like his boxing style or not, he delivers. That guy delivers. Ted Cheeseman, the big cheese, he always delivers. Every fight you see him, he always delivers. He's in sensational fights. You look at the Eggington fight, that was a brilliant fight for Ted Cheeseman. You look at Fitzgerald, that was a good fight. It's always in wars, Ted Cheeseman. He always gives 110%. And yeah, you see his face at the end. He was bashed up. Metcalf as well. Full credit to James Metcalf. That was brilliant as well. You look at him in the fourth, fifth rounds, he looked gone. He looked finished for me. He looked out of there. He was absolutely gone. But he kept going and he kept fighting. Didn't even get dropped, didn't even take a knee, just kept going in the fight. And that was brilliant. You know, James Metcalf, you earn a lot of plaudits there for your heart in that fight. You kept going and showed so much balls, mate. That was balls. It showed a lot of bollocks there. Both fighters showed a lot of bollocks for me. Ted took his punishment as well. You saw later on in the fight, Metcalf come on top and land great combinations and hooks, and really gave his presence on the fight. You know, really put himself in there as well. Ted Cheeseman, though, I thought was well worth the win there. I thought he was winning. Was going to a decision. You felt Ted Cheeseman was up, but James Metcalf also won rounds in the fight. Maybe didn't have the experience. That's what I said before the fight. I think Ted Cheeseman had the experience at British level, you know, Scott Fitzgerald's, you know, these kind of fights, Sam Eggington's, you look at him, obviously fought Garcia, much higher level, a European level fighter, fought Carlton Jones, Carlton Jones, the American lad, good experienced fighters. So Ted Cheeseman's had his, and Byfield as well. So Ted Cheeseman's like learned on the job, like he's gone out the right stages. You know, he's a solid British title level fighter. There's no way of denying it. He's a solid British level guy. I don't know if there's much higher than that, higher ceiling than British title for Ted Cheeseman, but he will always be in wars. And for these kind of pay-per-view cards, you want people to deliver, and Ted Cheeseman delivers. He deserves to get paid. His next fight, I want to see Ted Cheeseman get paid big money. And if he's on pay-per-view again, he needs to get paid big money. Because if he's in these type of fights, that they can take years off your life. Also, I say your career earlier, your life. These kind of fights can take a lot of years off your life. And you may never be the same after fights like this. He's had war after war, Ted Cheeseman. He's only 25 years old. So it's quite worrying. It's worrying in a sense that he's in these kind of wars and he's taking the punishment he is. So he needs pay. And I think Eddie Hearn needs to really get his checkbook out and give Ted Cheeseman a big money fight next, because pay him well. If he has to step up again at European level, I think he can. I think that's maybe a bit too far. Obviously, we saw Sergio Garcia a year or two ago when he headlined the show. He wasn't ready for that, and he took punishment against Garcia, too skilled Garcia at European level. I think British levels are where he's at. I think the potential fight against Anthony Fowler, that's a good fight. I think Anthony Fowler, Cheeseman's another fight where both guys will swing and give everything. And I actually fancy Ted Cheeseman in that fight, you know. I think that's a good fight. Anthony Fowler's looked good. Don't get me wrong. Anthony Fowler's looked very good since coming back from his defeat to Scott Fitzgerald under Shane McGuigan. He's looking to do good things, and I think he has actually improved. Anthony Fowler, I'm not his biggest fan, but Anthony has improved as a fighter. There's no way of denying it. He's looked strong. He's looked good since teaming up with Shane McGuigan. And yeah, I think that's the sort of fight you probably see next for Ted Cheeseman against Anthony Fowler. I think it's a decent fight as well. But James Metcalf, he's still in the mix as well. He can mix it at British level. What we've seen there, he can definitely mix it. Maybe Scott Fitzgerald fight there would be a good fight. You know, Sam Eggington. There's names at 154. Hamza Siraz with Frank Warren. He's a brilliant young fighter coming through. So there's potential fights there for James Metcalf. The 154 division in the UK is popping. You've got potentially Josh Kelly moving up as well at 154. So there's some names at that division. We want to see them all fight each other. And I think they will fight each other because there's nowhere else really to go for all these guys except fighting each other. So we're going to see some cracking fights at 154. Ted Cheeseman, full credit there, mate. That was sensational. Knockout at the end. Brilliant combination to knock out James Metcalf, especially how knackered they both were at the end, to come out and throw the punches you did to get the knockout. Full credit to Ted Cheeseman, and a great win for him. And he moves on in his career, and he's got options, hasn't he, Ted Cheeseman? So let's see where he goes. Well done, Ted Cheeseman. Good win. Next fight was the debut of young Campbell Hatton, Ricky Hatton's son, Campbell Hurricane Hatton versus Jesus Ruiz. My thoughts on this fight were that I thought Campbell did all right. He got the win. He got the win, most importantly, in your pro debut. All it matters is getting the W, and he's got a lot to learn, hasn't he? He's only 18, 19 years old, so I'm not going to be too critical of the young guy. But I think the bill and the pressure may have got to him a little bit. I think Eddie Hearn, this is important for the matchmakers, Eddie Hearn, his team, Campbell Hatton's team, to really take their time with him and get the right matchmaking for him. I think he's got a long, long way to go. I think he's got to really manage him well. I think 10, 15 fights for me, just keep fighting journeyman. Give him 10, 15 fights where he's going to win every single time and learn under the lights. Good 4 rounds, get the experience. He was gassing at the end. And that was only 4 rounds, so he's got a long way to go. His team got to get the conditioning, got to got to get the conditioning there. He's got to learn on the job really, because he's a novice, isn't he? He hasn't got a massive amateur experience either. You don't hear him winning national. You haven't heard him he's won nationals. I don't think he won nationals and things like that. So he's very, very raw. He isn't seasoned. He's not seasoned. He's got a lot of learning, and he does that learning for me in the gym, sparring good professionals. And his trainers, obviously, with his uncle and Matthew Hatton, and managed by Ricky Hatton. These are the perfect guys to have around you. And with Eddie Hearn, he needs to get the matchmaking spot on, because I think the stage was a little bit too big for Campbell Hatton there last night. A lot of pressure. Sky, DAZN, you're seeing documentaries made about him. You're seeing the big promos, everything like that. Of course, you expect it being Ricky Hatton's son, but I think there's too much pressure on the kid, too much talking about the kid. The kid needs to learn his trade, go on a little bit more low-key undercards, learn his trade properly. I think Frank Warren would have done, like Frank Warren does it quite well. A lot of his prospects, obviously, I'm saying that, a lot of his prospects got beat recently, but Frank Warren did it quite well with a lot of his young prospects back in the day, on low-key shows, building the fighters up properly. And I think that's what they need to do with Campbell Hatton. And for me, take a leaf there, like build him on small hall shows maybe a little bit. Obviously, that's not going to happen. He's straight on another big pay-per-view undercard, Parker Chisora. But they need to take their time with him and not give so much hype saying he's going to be world champion, this, that, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. He needs to learn a lot in this game. Professional boxing is not a game. He needs a lot to learn in this sport, because one punch can change everything, like we've seen a lot last night. Some big punches, a lot of prospects stepping up, weren't ready for the step-ups. You see, obviously, Willie Hutchinson, and you see the cruiserweight there last night. There's a lot of guys stepping up who aren't ready for it, and they need maturing, and you get that experience sparring in the gym and under the lights, most importantly. So you want to see Campbell Hatton stay very active. You want to see him fighting regular. For me, I'd like to see him fight every 3 months, 2-3 months. It doesn't matter if he's fighting guys that he knocks out in a round. For me, just keep him active, get him experience under the lights. I don't want to see him rushed in 10 fights. I want to see him built properly. 15 fights, 15 solid fights, building each time against guys he should be beating, and then step it up gradually from there. But good luck to Campbell Hatton. Seems a very nice guy, very genuine, down-to-earth guy, very humble. He doesn't seem arrogant. Obviously, he's son of a great boxing, a legend in British boxing, and he seems very humble. He doesn't seem arrogant or anything. So good luck to Campbell Hatton. And take your time, Matchroom, take your time, Hatton Boxing, Matthew Hatton, Ricky, take your time with him. And let's see him progress, and let's pray he has a good career, because we want to see these kind of names do well in boxing, and having the Hatton name holds a lot of stock in boxing. So let's see how he goes. So good luck to Campbell Hatton. The next fight was a great fight. This was a fight I was probably one of the most excited fights. I was excited to on the card, the welterweight fight. Both guys I rate highly. Chris Congo, I was a big fan of. I predicted him to win. I was wrong in this fight. Matthew McKinson was sensational. I thought he was very, very good, technically, brilliantly, boxed superbly. Won the fight clearly. I had him winning clear. I thought the scorecards were a little bit close-ish. I had it, one of the scorecards I had it right was 97-93 McKinson. I thought he won very clear, obviously with a knockdown, and won the majority of the rounds. He was a clear winner for me, won by 4 points in my eyes. So well done to Matthew McKinson. Got the knockdown and boxed superbly, and he's going to be a tricky customer at welterweight for me. He's very technically good. He's stylistically a nightmare, I see, for all these welterweight guys. I think he'd be a nightmare for Makabu. I think he'd be a nightmare for Conor Benn, purely on his style. He's a very good fighter. I think Congo couldn't really adjust to it. I think Congo had success as well, though. Don't get me wrong, Congo had success, came back into the fight well. But we know Congo's a heavy hitter, and he just couldn't find McKinson, really. McKinson was very clever, got the knockdown in the first round, and really built from that, and built a strong lead, and really took it to points. I don't think McKinson's got the power. He has the power in his hands to knock guys out. But as a skillful, awkward fighter, slick fighter, he's going to be very tricky to beat. 20-0, 2 KOs, but very tricky to beat. He'll take you to points, and he'll do a job on you. So excellent fight for McKinson. Chris Congo can come back from that, though. He's not finished. He's a young fighter. 1L doesn't define a fighter. So he'll come back. I think he's a good fighter, Chris Congo. I like him a lot. Good amateur. Good boxer, beat Luther Clay. Obviously, his last fight looked very good in that, and he's still a problem for a lot of guys at welterweight. So let's see him rebuild, and let's see him fight these domestic guys as well, because there's some good fights out there for both guys. And yeah, we want to see them both in good fights. But McKinson, winner stays on, like Eddie Hearn says. He will build from that. And let's see him in with some other good domestic fights. So well done to Matthew McKinson. He gets a W there, and that was a good win for him, a good unanimous decision. Another good fight we saw last night. This was another big shock for me. Nick Webb knocking out Eric Pfeiffer in the second round. I did not see this coming. Eric Pfeiffer, obviously experienced guy, was one of the main sparring partners with Dillian Whyte in his camp in Portugal for Povetkin. I thought Eric Pfeiffer should have made light work of Nick Webb, but full credit to Nick Webb. He's come back from the Kamil Sovolowski performance. He obviously was in that tournament, the boxer, wasn't it, the heavyweight version? He beat some undefeated guys, Danny Whitaker and names like that. Came back from his L against Kamil Solovsky. And obviously Scott Welch, the team there have done well with him. He looked good. Every time he hit Eric Pfeiffer had no answer, though. His punch resistance was poor. I thought Eric Pfeiffer was shocking, to be honest, but I'm not taking anything away from Nick Webb. That was a good finish and dominated from the first round, really. Very strong, came front foot and put it on Eric Pfeiffer, and Eric Pfeiffer had no answers. Eric Pfeiffer, we expected a little bit better because as an amateur, he beat Tony Yoka as an amateur. He was a decent amateur, had a lot of amateur fights against good names, Joe Joyce, etc. And he was supposed to fight Daniel Dubois at one point, and a lot of people thought Daniel Dubois pulled out against that fight. Clearly, Daniel Dubois would have knocked out Eric Pfeiffer. That's a good win for Nick Webb. And like I mentioned, Nick Webb can go from strength to strength. There's some big fights now for Nick Webb, but potentially in heavyweight division. Like I say, Fabio Wardley would be a great fight. Nick Webb, Fabio Wardley. If they can get a British title on the line there, that'd be brilliant. Nick Webb, Gorman, maybe. That'd be a good fight. Nick Webb, David Adelaide, potentially. I think Nick Webb's a good name for a lot of these young up-and-coming heavyweights to fight now. And he's going to earn the money now. So fair play to Nick Webb. Great win for you, mate. And keep going and do some big domestic fights, potentially at the heavyweight division. So let's see them get made now. Let's see the fights. And this was a good opening fight. And yeah, my thoughts on the card overall. Listen, it was a good card. The fights actually delivered for Eddie Hearn there. Not the big names, like I say. It wasn't a pay-per-view card, but the fights delivered and people probably got value for money in a sense. But for me, the names, some of the fights were okay, I suppose. They were good fights, but 20 quid's a lot of money. I think pay-per-view is a bit of it's again a piss take really with it all for me. But no, it was a decent fight night, to be fair. Compared to some of the previous ones we've seen, that was a good fight night. Some good fights, some good young talent there, which can obviously learn from the fights they've had. And yeah, I'm interested to see the winners where they go next, because there's some good fighters there. And yeah, some good young fighters, prospects. And we just want to see where they go from now. Like I say, with Dillian Whyte, we're interested to see where he goes. So yeah, some good fights to be made. And yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, guys, hope you take it well. Hope you take it easy. This is HJM Boxing. You're out. And stay tuned for more videos. HJM Boxing, subscribe. Follow on Instagram. HJM Boxing on Instagram. All the latest news content, we've got you on there. So follow the social media. I'll keep you posted on all the latest videos that are going to drop. Thank you all. Take it easy. God bless.